So recently one of my students went on a date and he was explaining to me that it was going very well. He really liked the girl. They were having a lot of intellectual, fun conversations and just a great connection. And at some point they started talking about their previous dating experiences, and he asked this girl, have you ever hooked up with someone outside in the doors? And this girl, for some reason, reacted very negatively, very defensively. She got very visceral with her emotions, and it wasn't a good situation. And my students got a bit freaked out, got a bit worried, and started apologizing again and again for the statement, and started over-explaining himself that he didn't really mean it like that, and the whole situation collapsed a little bit. And I think this is a common fear for a lot of guys, is that they worry about flirting because they worry about the potential negative reactions, and that's why they don't do it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how can you actually flirt properly without really crossing the barrier. So number one is you want to be congruent when you flirt. When a lot of guys go on dates, they get stuck in this platonic logical mode for hours because it's much more comfortable to just stay there and talk about day-to-day topics, about work. And especially like with my student, he told me that he really was connecting with this girl. He didn't really want to risk intensifying things, but in the end, what ended up happening was that he realized that he had been talking to this girl for 2 or 3 hours, but he hadn't really escalated things. So there was not really much sexual chemistry, it was just more emotional chemistry. And then they started talking about dating, and then his statement was a bit out of nowhere because they hadn't really discussed anything. They also hadn't had any physical contact, and that's why it was a bit incongruent. So incongruent is when it sort of comes out of nowhere, it feels out of place. However, if my student had been flirting with his date right from the get-go, if he would be making some compliments, some playful teasing, all of these things throughout the date, then this statement wouldn't really be that much of a deal. To be fair, this statement is nothing really that major. I ask much more intense questions to my dates on the first dates, but the difference is that I'm flirting right from the get-go, so when we arrive at hour 2, hour 3, we're already discussing such personal topics that it feels just congruent to talk about this. It doesn't feel incongruent. But the problem is, if you just stay to these safe topics for 2 to 3 hours, then once you want to escalate things and you want to get more personal, then things are going to get incongruent. You want to start right from the beginning, don't wait too long, and start off a little bit, then intensify, and just build up the level of flirting that you have. Maybe start with some light compliments, then some bit of exaggeration, and then you can go into slight teasing and slight sexualizing. It's the same thing with physical touch. You don't want to wait the entire date without touching the girl and then go for the big kiss. It doesn't work like that. And yet that's what the biggest mistake what guys make is. It's just a classic rookie mistake. Instead, you want to build this little by little so these things become congruent. Now, the second big thing is owning your statement. So what happened with my student is he became over apologetic and over defensive because he wasn't ready for this girl's reaction. So he started apologizing that he didn't really mean it and he wanted to kind of calm things down. And the thing is that this is a nice guy. I know the student personally, we're working together for a long time, and he's a genuinely nice guy. And he didn't really mean it the way the girl took it, but by over-explaining it, he actually made things worse because he reacted to the girl's reaction. So now he actually did look like the weird, creepy guy because the girl reacted, and now he was reacting to the girl's reaction. Instead, what you want to do is you want to stay calm, cool, and collected. And if the girl overreacts, you don't want to react to her reaction. Instead, you want to just stay calm and cool. And what's actually going to happen a lot of times is that when you're calm and cool, they're going to think to themselves, oh, well, maybe if he's that calm and cool, maybe what he said wasn't actually that bad. Maybe it's just my overreaction to things. And this is what happens a lot on my dates is I sometimes say things that could be labeled as a bit too intense, but then I just stay calm, cool. And at some point they're like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just not used to this, or I guess I just misunderstood you. So they start over justifying themselves and they start defending their initial reaction, and they say that they don't really mean it. But the thing is that if you react to their reaction, it seems like what you did actually was wrong. What you can do if the girl took something out of context, don't apologize for what you said, but just explain what you meant and how she took it. So sometimes what I say in extreme examples is that, look, you took my statement as X, but what I really meant was Y. So you just explain what you really meant when you gave that particular statement or a flirty line. So you just emphasize that the way you said it wasn't the way you intended it to be perceived. So if it was perceived in a different way, then just explain that, but don't become over apologetic. And lastly, now the most important thing to tie everything down is that don't be afraid to flirt. Because that's the whole point, is that when you're afraid to flirt, then you wait too long to start flirting, and then at the end of the day, you're thinking like, oh, well, I haven't done enough, we don't have much sexual chemistry, then you try to go for it, and then it feels a bit weird. A lot of guys just worry about problems that are not there. If we have a spectrum of flirting, let's say you have too little flirting, then in the middle you have good level of flirting, and then on the far side you have too much flirting. Most guys are not here. Most guys are here. They're doing way too little flirting. So you shouldn't even worry about overstepping the bounds, because quite frankly, you are still erring on the safe side. So you need to take a bit of risks. You need to make the conversations a bit more playful. You need to tease a bit more. You need to exaggerate a bit more. You need to role play a bit more. So don't worry about getting here, because you're not even here. You're not even in the middle zone. Now, sometimes you might just say incongruent stuff. And again, if that happens, stay calm and cool and collected. And then if you really need it, use the statement that I told you before of explaining your intention with the previous statement. Also, if you're wondering, all this sounds good, but how do I even flirt? I don't know how to flirt. Then I've made a completely free Logical Man's Guide to Flirting. It will explain what flirting is, teach you different flirting techniques, teach you different flirting mindsets, and actually even show you in real life how to implement these techniques. If you want to get it completely for free, check the link down in the description. And I'll see you in the next video.